So today just started me trading on my demo account, and yeah, let's just say this week was interesting. I start each trading session off by marking out my key levels. This includes previous day highs and lows, 4-hour highs and lows, 1-hour highs and lows, as well as fair value gaps on the 1-hour and 4-hour time frame, as these are higher draws on liquidity. I then scaled down to the 1-minute time frame, where I waited for a break of structure to the downside or the upside. I eventually got that break of structure to the downside, but for some reason I didn't enter the trade. And good thing I didn't, because price completely reversed to the upside. So now I scaled back to the 5-minute time frame where I marked out order blocks and breaker blocks. These are one of my confluences, and I think this is where I went wrong with the first trade I did. I didn't go through all of my confluence and I kind of rushed into it. But this time I waited for price to retrace into one of my zones so I can then scale down to the 1-minute time frame. Now I'm just waiting for a breaker structure, but while we wait, I still see the messages you read. Okay, enough of that. I eventually get a breaker structure, and this is where I would usually enter a trade, but I'm looking around and I don't see any previous day highs for me to place my take profit, making this a terrible setup, and I shouldn't take this trade. But I did. So yeah, I took this trade despite it being a terrible setup, and like I just said, I had nowhere to place my take profit, so I kind of just shot for a 2RR. Price consolidated for a while, but then eventually hit my stop loss for a small loss of around $6. I didn't know about lot size at the time, so I was risking way too little for my account size, and as you can see, I wasn't very happy. But that wasn't the only trade that I placed today. I also traded a different forex pair where I marked out more key levels. I then marked out my highs and lows and waited for a breaker structure. And once I got that breaker structure, I then marked out a breaker block zone and an order block zone as well, but price was already engulfed inside of that order block zone, so I just deleted it. And just like the last trade, I waited for price to retrace into it. And price did eventually enter the breaker block, where I then went down to the 1-minute time frame and waited for a breaker structure, which is my last confluence to enter the trade. Price looked like it was about to break structure to the downside, so I started marking out my take profit and stop loss. And as you can see, this time I was looking to target previous day lows. Now this is where I get upset. I was so busy trying to figure out how to enter the trade and how to enter my stop loss and take profit into the broker that I completely missed the trade. So once I finally did enter the trade, the move to the downside had already completely happened, and you can clearly tell from my reaction that I was not happy. So yeah, after I botched my entry, price just completely reversed, and I decided to close my position for a small loss of 32 cents. And after that, I just called it a day. Starting out today, I seen price form an inverse fair value gap, which acts as a breaker structure in my trading strategy. So I scaled down to the 1-minute time frame, and today I tried out a new confluence called equilibrium. Basically how I use it is I wait for price to pull below that 0.5 mark, and then I wait for a breaker structure to the upside, and I enter the trade off that, which is exactly what price ended up doing. But here's where I messed up. I placed a limit order, which basically means when price reaches the point of my limit, I will automatically be placed into the trade. But I got scared that price wouldn't get me into the trade earlier enough for some reason, and I mainly entered the trade. I was planning on canceling that limit order, but as I was placing my stop loss and take profit, price hit my limit order and got me in the trade. So now instead of having 20 lots on this trade, I had 40, which means I'm risking a lot more money than I should be. Now if you thought things couldn't get worse, they did. Once I entered the trade, price quickly reversed and I got stopped out for a fat loss of around $1,120. But I tried to not let that affect me. I scaled back to the 5-minute time frame, went through all my confluences again, and now we're here on the 1-minute time frame, waiting for a breaker structure to the upside. This time I was determined to get a good entry, which is exactly what I did. As soon as price broke structure, I entered the trade and focused on placing my stop loss and take profit after I was already in the trade. But I might have gotten a little too excited and taken a bad trade. As you can see here, there wasn't really any previous day highs for me to target. The only previous day high was super high up, and price just wasn't going to hit that in one day. So I have to find a balance between finding my stop loss and take profit, but entering the trade late, and entering the trade early, but not looking at where I'll be placing my stop loss and take profit. With that being said, I was in the green for a minute, even being up $400 at one point, but since there was no previous day high for me to take profit, price kind of just hit a point and then reversed, and I got stopped out for a fat loss of $480, which concludes Tuesday. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea what happened in Wednesday's footage. I did take a trade, and all you need to know is I lost again. On to Thursday. Following those 3 losing days, I did some research, backtested a little bit, and made a couple of tweaks to my strategy. One of those being drawing a box from the body of the candle to the wick instead of a line at the top or the bottom of the wick, as well as I won't be marking out zones on the 1-hour and 4-hour time frame. I also started looking at the daily bias of the market and trying to trade with the trend versus against it. and this is where I do look at the 1 hour and 4 hour time frame. Today you can see the price is overall bearish, but there's a recent breaker structure to the upside indicating that price is about to reverse bullish. This is confirmed by the 1 hour time frame, where you can see the market is also bullish. So today I'll be looking for longs. Even though I was excited to try out my new tweaks on my strategy, there's a problem. I checked Forex Factory and there's news on the USD pairs today at the exact time that I trade, meaning that I'm not really supposed to take a trade today. But I decided to trade anyway just to experience what it's like trading on a high impact news day. So now I'm just waiting for a breaker structure to the upside, which is exactly what happens. And once we get this breaker structure, I'll mark out a fair value gap and wait for price to retrace into it. Price did this shortly after, and now I was just waiting for a bullish candle close so I can enter the trade. However, I fell into the same trap that I usually do. You can see here that the nearest take profit is high up, and price likely won't reach it, making this a bad trading setup. But yeah, I still took the trade. Identifying bad and good setups is something that I will learn with time on the market. In the moment, I had no idea that these were bad setups, but this is why I'm documenting my journey, so I can catch these mistakes and fix them. I was in the green for a while, being up $400, but price just ended up stopping me out for a loss of $460. And I'm not too mad about this because I was up a lot of money despite it being a terrible setup. I took another trade on a different Forex pair which had a similar setup to my first trade. The only difference was a closer take profit, so this was a decent setup. But I entered the trade late again and missed the move. As soon as I entered the trade, I noticed the price had already smashed my take profit, so instead of making $700, I took a fat loss of $460. With that, I took a total loss of $3,849, as well as $537 in fees. I know this is my first week ever placing trades, so I'm not going to beat myself up about it. But for real, this is just my first week of mini. I'm going to lose a lot more, but I'm also going to win some too. But only time will tell, so I'll see you in the next video. Bye!